You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
You know, they say that youth is wasted on the young, and I totally believe that, especially now at my age. There's probably most of you still think this. You feel invincible. You feel like you can do anything. And it isn't until you get older and stuff that you have those moments where things start failing, they don't work as well. And I had 2 events happen in the last couple of years where I ended up in the emergency room. And I had never been in the emergency room for anything, never stayed the night in the hospital. When I was younger, I'd go in for asthma attacks or, twisted ankles type of thing. But it had been a very long time since I'd been in the emergency room. For me, I had driven people and stayed with people in the emergency room, like just way more than I ever wanted to. But I had a bout of pneumonia a couple of years back, not that long after I started the show. And then last year I went in with some issues with my legs. And the pneumonia one, it got so bad with the breathing, I actually got taken in by an ambulance. The leg ones, I actually drove myself in because I swore I would never go into an ambulance again. I'm a very large guy, not just height. I'm just a big guy. And the scariest thing in my life was being rolled around on a little gurney or whatever those things are in the hospital or in the ambulance, because it felt like I was going to tip over the whole thing, and I'm hanging on going, ah, ah. But and when I got out of the emergency room both times, the first time my nephew came down with my mom to pick me up. And when they did that, they pulled my truck up in front because, again, my truck is the easiest thing for me to get in and out of. It's an oversized vehicle. It's great. I love my truck. It's a 2010 Ford Raptor. And I walked outside. My nephew was standing there next to the truck, and he just tossed me the keys because he knew that even though I had just gotten out of the hospital, I was having severe breathing problems and stayed in the hospital overnight. He knew that as soon as I walked out, I'd want to drive myself home. The second time when I went in with my legs, I was in there a couple more days. And the moment I got out, they said, well, do you have someone to drive you home? I said, no, I've got my own truck. They're like, what? I said, I have my truck. It's in the parking lot downstairs. So you've been here 4 days. I went, yeah, my truck's in the parking lot downstairs. I hope you validate. And they walked me down to the front doors and across the front of until I got to having to cross the street, and they left me there. They went, good luck. And I wandered over and had a hell of a time getting in the truck. But once I did, I drove myself home. And I'm going to tell you that was stupid both times. Because you're not 100%. When they let you out of the hospital, it's not, you're fine, go home. It's, you're well enough to go home and recover. You're not emergency level. They're going to send you home. And our mindset is still that we're invincible tanks, or at least I am. I mean, and I've always been a tank in mentality. It's when I sign on to video games and stuff, I play a tank. I'm in Warcraft. My first character was a prot warrior because I'm a tank. That's my mindset. But there's a point that you have to stop. And no matter how dependent or independent you are, you have to stop and accept help. You have to stop and tell people, I need your help. And you need to let them help. And there's so many people in this world that can't do that, that can't simply say, yes, I could use your help. And for the people around you, the people that love you, it is very frustrating because if you don't listen and you don't offer to help or accept the help, there's a chance it's just going to go into a cycle and it's just going to get worse and worse. So if you're sick or you end up in the hospital and somebody offers to help you, take it. Take the help. Listen to them. Focus on your healing, focus on you, and then go back to being Superman or Wonder Woman or whatever you think you are in your head once you get better. Don't try to just bull your way through. So that's my cold open for the day. It's all I got. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Today is July 6th, and we're going to talk about the third episode, the halfway point of Secret Invasion. We're already at the halfway point. I've got some key collectibles involving Skrulls, and we're going to do the news. Let me say hello to everybody. Hey, Ed, am I blurry? What if I just kind of move around a lot? Would that make it worse? It might be that moving. I don't know. My camera has to auto zoom. Josh is here. Good to see you. Slipknot. Hey, Slip. I haven't seen you in a little bit. So glad to see you here. And of course, we got Jay on the boards. JD is out today dealing with a poor little kitty, a sick little kitty. So please give a good thought for JD's cat and for JD, because we know how much we love our pets. So. All right, let's jump into things. We got odd bits of news today. Today isn't really a big news day, you know. There is no big story, so we got stupid little stories, and we're gonna. I guess stupid is not the right term for it. But we got small little stories, like Netflix is signing a deal to officially license some of HBO's original series. So shows that you're used to watching on HBO, now that HBO Max is just Max, are going to move over to Netflix. So I know this is David Zaslav making things to try to bring more money in. Obviously, they don't think they're making enough money off of Max that they can license out some of these to try to bring in, because that's David Zaslav's job. As much as people want to bash him for stuff, David Zaslav was hired or ran Discovery, made them profitable. They bought Warner Brothers. They saw certain things that they thought they could make money with, and he's supposed to bring down the debt, and that's what he's trying to do. Now, whether you like what he's doing or not, that's arguable. But the fact that this is what he's doing, it was pretty obvious this is what he's going to be doing. And one of the things he's come up with is to license some original HBO projects. So currently on there is Issa Rae's comedy Insecure, but soon to be available on Netflix will be Band of Brothers, The Pacific, 6 Feet Under. 6 Feet Under is great. If you have not watched it, that is where I first learned about Michael C. Hall and Peter Krause. Well, Peter Krause was Sports Night, but I started paying attention because he was on 6 Feet Under. Eric Balfour. Just there's some really great actors and actresses on 6 Feet Under. It's such a good story, and it's very different than what a lot of things that are on the air right now. Also, the series Ballers, which I believe is Dwayne Johnson's project. So those are all going to move over to Netflix from Max. Now, how quickly that's going to happen, I don't know. And then if you're outside of the United States, you'll also get True Blood. So, yeah, if you want to watch Anna Paquin and Stephen Moyer as vampires and stuff, there you go. But yeah, so if you see something that looks like it should be on Max, it's like, hey, that was like originally on HBO. It suddenly moved. You're going to probably see it pop up on Netflix next. So, all right, let's go on to let's see. Streaming is reinventing cable, and now they're reinventing syndication. Yep, exactly. And someone's going to come along, and it wasn't David Zaslav. One of these guys was talking about it. Someone is going to come along and bundle all of these streaming services together, and it's just going to be cable again. You know, maybe they'll pick up some actual live channels, and we're just going to end up with cable again. So people pay for convenience. Cable was convenient. This, when we had one streaming service like Netflix, and then all of a sudden there was Hulu, but as they're growing, it's not convenient anymore. You know, my smart TV has a limited number of apps it can have loaded on it. And I think I'm already close to the edge. So, and I'm about to break. Amanethula Dismax. Let's see. We got Hulu, Disney Max, Netflix, Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Max. The only thing you're missing is Peacock. By the way, there are some decent shows on Peacock. What's the name of the one? The murder mystery one that was just out for the guy that does Knives Out. Just that slipped my mind, but that's a great show on there. They have I'm just going to say the plus was for Apple. Okay. I thought that middle A between Hulu and Disney was for Apple. But they also have Quantum Leap, and they're going to have Twisted Metal, the adaptation of Twisted Metal starring Anthony Mackie. So lots of options there. Peacock's got some decent stuff. Hey, Backwoods, good to see you. So, all right, let's move on to some other news. Like I said, I'm kind of winging it today. I'm slightly distracted, but I'm going to try to stay focused. And all right, let's go with what do we got news-wise? Oh, do you know that you guys know that at Disneyland, they've turned one of the theaters into where they're actually doing a version of Rogers the Musical. When you go to, I think it's California Adventures is where the Avengers Park is, or whatever they call it. And they have Rogers the Musical, but it's more than just the one song. It's not like they come out and do the one number and then they empty the theater and bring a whole number in for one number. They've added to it. And with this Rogers the Musical, we get to see some stuff that is beyond what we saw in the movies. So Peacock has to ask the WWE pay-per-view to actually not pretty, yeah. Oh, that's right, they do have that. Hey, cool. Poker face. Thank you, Josh. All right, so what they've added is they kind of cover what happens to Steve when he goes back to return the Infinity Stones, or at least part of it. So what this report says is the audience sees the old version of Cap meeting himself in the aftermath of Endgame, where he's shown the Time Stone. Following a duet with himself, appropriately titled End of the Line, younger Cap is persuaded to use the Time Stone to go back to Peggy. As soon as he touches the stone, the theater goes dark, and there's a sound of a ticking clock along with echoing quotes from Peggy, such as, "Maybe you just haven't found the right partner," and "Welcome to your chance." Then the 1940s set materializes out of the time stone tinted green hue and reveals Peggy beginning the musical number Just One Dance. After singing how every Saturday night, every Saturday at 8, I stand here and wait, Steve appears, leading Peggy to say, "You're late." To this, of course, Steve responds, "Sorry, I lost track of time." In reference to the use of the time zone, right after Peggy sings, "I can't believe how lives can change," Steve snaps his finger and sets invisible ripples when he responds, "With just one snap, they rearrange." Peggy goes on to sing, "Let fate decide our place in time from here." So, um, and then Steve comes back with, "You know, right from the start, just what I was made of. No, now one more day apart is all that I'm afraid of. So what's a guy to do but prove it to be true by coming back to you?" And they bring out the USO Starkettes and stuff, and they do the song "Just One Dance," and it ends, of course, with him saying, "I could do this all day." Now, this, I don't know if this is considered canon, but Kevin Feige was consulted on all the stuff they do in this musical. So they kind of give us an idea of what, you know, and most of that makes sense. It's kind of what we assumed. But the idea that old man Steve was already there before the younger Steve went back in time and they have a discussion, that's the part that surprises me. I didn't see that coming, you know? That's the part that, it's like he convinces himself to go back and be with Peggy. Now, does that mean that that version already had? See, that's where it gets kind of weird time wise. So, but according to the musical, he talks to himself, does a song with himself, and then they go on and have the closing. So I just think that's kind of interesting. I'd love to know if that is technically canon. So reporters out there who interview Kevin Feige, there's your question. Let's get an answer on that one. All right, what else we got? We got oh, you guys, if you're wondering why the Mandalorian episodes are always so short, Bryce Dallas Howard was the second guest on Katie Sackhoff's new podcast. She calls it Blah, Blah, Blah. And the two of them were talking about, they talk about the fun they have on the set. Howard talked about, she says, "It's so fun to be part of stories like Spider-Man because it's very meaningful to people, but also it requires so many people to achieve it, right? And the kind of animatronics, the mix of visual effects, the practical effects, cinema, performance, and so many different kinds of people need to come together in order for it to work. Because like engineers and artists, and really, really amazing when it does all work." And Katie Sackhoff talks about how there being so many moving parts. All it works. That's why I tell people like that Mando is like, they're always so confused why it takes so long for us to shoot and why the episodes are in their mind so short. And I'm like, there are so many moving parts to this that you have no idea. The fact is, these two talk about how they're surprised they can get these things done as quickly as possible. So the reason that they're around 38, 40 minutes is because of all that they have to do to even put these things out. They make it happen by keeping them short because you got all the extra stuff you have to do. And yeah, so that's why they're so short. Now I got one other news story. This is some stuff from James Gunn about the upcoming Superman movie. James Gunn is referring to the reboot as a workplace origin story. Now, he's already come out and said, we're not redoing Superman's origin. And there's no plans to have a younger version of Clark. How whenever we see a Superman story, there's always Clark at this age and Clark at that age and baby Clark and teenage Clark and Clark in puberty. And then we get, modern day Clark. They're not doing that. David Corenswet is going to be the only one to play Clark Kent in the movie. There's not going to be multiple versions of him. Now, will they de-age him? I don't know. Do you think they could de-age anybody into a baby at this point? Kind of curious about that, just how far down you could de-age somebody. But anyway, this is going to be a workplace origin story, and they're saying that basically, with all the elements and the plots and stuff, that Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane is really the co-lead of the movie. It's the two of them. So in a way, it could be like Superman and Lois, or Superman or Lois and Clark, that type of name, but it's going to be Superman Legacy. And of course, the original plot synopsis said that it tells the story of Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing as Clark Kent of Smallville, Kansas. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, the American way, guided by human kindness in a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned. Now, right there, I think that really tells you where the authority plays into it. Because this is supposed to be a world now. Superman is not the first superhero in this world. There will be already established heroes. He'll be coming into this world, and with his old-fashioned values, his corn-fed values, it's going to bump up against heroes like the Authority, who are much more do what has to be done types. So now Gunn was talking about how he found his approach into this story, and he says that less than a year ago I saw a way in many ways centering around Superman's heritage, how both his aristocratic Kryptonian parents and his Kansas farm parents inform who he is and the choices he makes. He's aiming to tell a story that treats the characters with dignity and compassion, and it's the best, most surprising, most moving story I can possibly tell. And if that ends up being just moving because it's a fun blast of a film, or it ends up being moving because you're sobbing, or it makes you feel that rage, or whatever it makes you feel, I'm good with all of those things, as long as it works. Now, the one thing that he has made perfectly clear, though, is he's not looking to redo something that's already been done. He says, I don't think the movie would be worth making if it was just a redo of another Superman adaptation. For us to truly thrive as a studio, we need to honor the past of these characters while simultaneously seeing them in a new light. So I got to be honest, I really like the things that he's saying. I like his approach to it, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. So let me catch up real quick on the comments. 100% down for Disney Plus to put out Rogers the Musical like Hamilton. I'm hoping they will put it on Disney Plus. But I mean, it needs to have a good run at the theater there. But I think eventually they should film it and put it on Disney Plus just for fun. Hey, Sean Butler, how you doing? I think Mandalorian is the best thing in the Star Wars franchise. I agree. Mandalorian, Andor. I completely agree with Sean regarding the Mandalorian. Yep. Mandalorian got me back into Star Wars. I used to be a huge Star Wars fan. I grew up loving Star Wars, had all the toys, all of that stuff. Loved the movies, enjoyed the prequels. I mean, I'm not a prequel hater. And then it just kind of vanished. I didn't really watch the animated stuff. It kind of vanished, at least in my mind. And then when The Force Awakens came out, I was so disappointed in that movie. And I wasn't disappointed for what everybody else seems to be. I'm not a fan of Kylo Ren. I think he's a horrible villain. He's just a whiny goth kid. B, I hated the fact that they took away our characters' happy endings. Han and Leia end up together. No. Luke ends up going on to build his new Jedi, I think. No. They really just crushed where they didn't need any of those characters for the story. They could have just skipped them. They could have just given us a new era of Star Wars. They didn't need to, it could still be Ben Kenobi or Ben Solo, stuff like that, but they didn't have to bring back all the other actors. I would have preferred they not come back. I would have preferred to let them have their happy ending. I didn't like how they were treated. So, and I had completely lost, and I think I only put on The Mandalorian because I was up late and I saw the thing, hey, The Mandalorian's on Disney Plus. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. And I watched the first few minutes of him. I'll take you in cold, warm, or I could take you in cold. I'm like, oh, that's the Star Wars I love. That's the Star Wars I grew up on. And that's what brought me back. So, let's see. Sean says, I think that's a smart move. Baby Clark, please. What I wouldn't give for a $200 million blockbuster version of that creepy Silver Age story where Lois and Lana try and impress DH Baby Clark. There are so many bad comics from the 70s that you look at now, you're like, did Lois Lane really spend a day as a black woman? Really? We're not doing that story. Yeah, that's one comic you're never going to see adapted. Sean says, I think origins are only necessary for characters who have not really had a movie or aren't really known to the general audience. Exactly. And if you think about it, Marvel has not done a Tom Holland origin story. We've never seen his version of Uncle Ben. And we all know that Uncle Ben's death is a huge part of Spider-Man's life. Nope. It's not very mentioned. In the Far From Home, they had the opportunity. They didn't even bring him up. My Uncle Ben died. My Uncle Ben died. Really? Because my aunt just died. He didn't even say, and my Uncle Ben died too. We don't know if he even had an Uncle Ben. His Uncle Ben might have just left May. We don't know why May was single. We don't know anything about his parents. We don't know anything about Tom Holland's Spider-Man's origins. And we all seem to be okay with that. Let's see. Ed says, the prequels ruined Star Wars for me. Rogue One brought me back. Mando cemented me firmly in the Star Wars universe again. Never bothered with the sequels and don't intend to. I don't blame you. But Rogue One and Solo, I like both of those. Ed says, did Clark's babysitter really let Clark climb into the microwave? You can't find good help nowadays. All right, let's go ahead. We're going to take our break. We'll come back and we'll talk Secret Invasion Episode 3. Be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code. Programming on the EXP is made possible by viewers like you, or your local comic shop, or that Kickstarter you backed, or the publisher you like, or comic industry professionals who want to share a message with the world. Really, anyone who wants to advertise with us can. If you're interested in seeing a product you know and love, or are creating, or are publishing, or are involved with, advertised here on The Experience, and having your message shared with our viewers, please reach out by scanning the QR code below or visiting our website and using the contact form.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rocket Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula: you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. I should probably point out before we get into the story, I have two things available right now, which I completely forget about. Karma, if you didn't get the hardcover, the trade paperback version should be in stores now. So you can ask your retailer about it. It's supposed to have shipped this last Wednesday or this Wednesday. I don't know. It shipped either yesterday or the week before, but it should be in stores now. And then about 2 years ago, I worked with Ron Zabala over at Olympus Comics, I think it's what it's called. Did a script for him for a new book called Mad Wolf and Cop. Yeah, Mad Wolf and Cop. And he just launched the Kickstarter for it yesterday. Let's see, I've got it up here somewhere, I thought I did. Mad Wolf and Cop Kickstarter. Yeah, so Mad Wolf and Cop #1. He launched it yesterday, still has 22 days to go, and they're already at $33,000. Now, I didn't have a lot to do with this. I did the initial script. This is his universe to play with. So from what I understand, he's probably made some major changes to it. But Ron's a good guy. He has a lot of success with his Kickstarter books. As you can tell, he's already at $33,000. So if you want to check that out, I did write at least the first pass of the script. And well, thank you, Ed and Sean, on the comments about Karma. I'm hoping there will be an announcement soon about a second Karma that's already written and drawn, and we're just waiting for a couple covers to come in. But yeah, so all right, let's get into Marvel's Secret Invasion, Episode 3, Betrayal. Jay says he's too biased to give his thoughts. This episode was rather interesting. I don't know about you guys, but one thing is I really enjoy the relationship between Talos and Fury. See, it's funny because Talos was Nick Fury for a while. When Nick was up in the space, he was pretending to be Fury when he needed to be. So Talos really understands Nick and sees through the BS. So it's interesting to see the two of them interact and just see Talos call him out on it. there's this great scene, and it's the second time that a dog has been referenced in this series. In the second episode, Gravik talks about how he prefers dogs over humans. Here, Talos is talking about how he doesn't understand the relationship between humans and dogs, and why is one picking up the other's excrement, stuff like that. And they get into this conversation that Nick's like, well, it's what I've been doing with you guys, cleaning up after your messes. And Talos just calls him out. He's like, we have been helping you. You wouldn't be who you are without us, because everything you did with that wealth of knowledge you had, with that information that made you powerful, was information we got you. Your little spy network of scrolls that could go in and be whoever. So we get this whole series seems to be to demystify Nick Fury. The more we see it, the more we're seeing he's just a human, which means that at some point the switch is going to flip, and we're going to have to see a kick-ass Nick Fury again to get through this. And we also know that because from everything that the writers and directors and stuff are talking about, there's not going to be any additional Avengers popping up to help save the day. So the director says he doesn't like cameos, and you're pretty much focusing on the characters who are in the series. Well, maybe the only Avenger in the series is Rhodey, except now Rhodey is in doubt. Now, if you'll remember in episode 2, was it 2? Yeah. He has this conversation with Nick, and he calls him Nick. And we all know that nobody calls Fury Nick. And most of them who do end up dead. Just saying. And we see that reiterated in this episode, too, that Talos lets Fury know that he's in trouble by referring to him as Nick. So in the second episode, Rhodey calls Fury Nick, and that set the internet ablaze. Oh my God, Rhodey's a Skrull. Rhodey's a Skrull. Oh no. Okay. Then we get this episode. And by the way, Jay, can we put up the spoiler? Thank you. Didn't know if that was already up or not. But in this episode, there is a phone call at the end of somebody who seems to be involved with Gravik. And while it doesn't identify it, it's like, if you have the closed caption on, it doesn't say it's this person and saying that. They just say man on phone. So at least they've gotten that figured out. But he really, really sounds like Don Cheadle. And I think just about the consensus of opinion is that it's Don Cheadle and that he's likely a Skrull. So there's no big reveal. We don't suddenly see him. But it's looking like Cheadle's going to be a Skrull. Now, I still don't think if he is a Skrull that he's been a Skrull very long. Because I don't think they want to take away Tony's death from Endgame with Rhodey there at his side or Rhodey at the funeral. I don't think they want to take that away and make it that he was a Skrull. Now, the only solution here is one of two things. Either Rhodey's only been a Skrull for a very short time, or he's been a Skrull for a very long time, as in his entire relationship with Tony Stark is him as a Skrull. That the Skrull is the one that's close to Tony. And I don't think they're going to do that, where it would make an interesting story. But because Armor Wars is happening, what I think is going to happen if Rhodey does turn out to be a Skrull is that he's going to have been a Skrull for a little bit of time, and we're going to start seeing, and he'll be rescued. He'll come out of it having lost a year or two or something like that, but after Tony's death. And he's going to see what's happening with all of Tony's technology, and that's going to spur him to get it back. Because had he been around, he wouldn't have let that happen. But now that he's back, he's been he was replaced by a Skrull for a while. That is, I think, how they're going to do the story, because it doesn't make sense because of Armor. As soon as knowing that we have Armor Wars coming, it doesn't make sense for Rhodey to be a Skrull for a very long time, because no one's going to want to see Armor Wars if we all know that Rhodey's a Skrull. At least that's my gut instinct on it. Other things we see in this episode, there's a lot of things going on. There's that, like I said, the discussion between Talos and Fury, which I think is great. We get a little backstory on his wife, on Fury's wife. We find out that, yes, he knows she's a Skrull, that she was one of his operatives, that she was really coming on to him, which probably explains why she chose the shape and the face that she did. Or the triumphant return of Terrence Howard. Would be interesting to suddenly have Terrence Howard back. So we get that, but we're now questioning her loyalties, because we see that she's tied to Gravik in the very beginning. And then Fury disappears for 5 years during the snap. And then when he comes back, he doesn't stay. He just shoots back up to the space station and just not dealing with the world. So where's her loyalty lie? And we see that in that conversation at the end, because it's her she's having the conversation with, and she's trying to get to Gravik. So I don't think we know what her play is going to be yet. Is she going to stop Gravik because she feels that she needs to stop him before Fury gets hurt? Or is she on Gravik's side? I don't know. There's a lot of loose threads there. There is this plot, and it's kind of a MacGuffin plot, of Gravik trying to get this nuclear launch thing into a UN plane, or destroy a UN plane to start a bigger conflict. But and that's kind of the basis for this episode, but it's very little to do with the episode. It's everybody's interactions, and it's how Gravik is really using this to try to suss out a mole. And he does, and he figures out that Gaia is feeding Talos information. And that, of course, puts her in danger. And we see at the end of the episode, and again, big spoiler, she is shot. Now, I'm going to say she's shot, and she turns back into a Skrull. Doesn't necessarily mean she's dead. Doesn't necessarily mean it was her. There's a lot of things going on with when you're talking about Skrulls and shapeshifters. There's a lot of things that could be happening there. But we do learn in this episode that their Super Skrull program, and Gravik says the term Super Skrull, is moving forward. We see that Gravik is stabbed in the hand and drugged through, and then his hand heals. But it heals in the same way that Extremis from Iron Man 3 would heal. So Gravik already has at least the power of Extremis. And we've seen in the trailers him doing the stretchy thing. So you get the feeling that they're already successful with the Super Skrull. maybe she has that too. So I'm not buying that she's dead. Where Maria Hill definitely dead, and I think they killed Maria Hill in part to make later on when they kill Gaia that people go, oh my God, she's dead too now. They are killing people in this series. So I think that's kind of the point of it, is to set that up. So Ed says Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle in the scene together with Cheadle in the War Machine armor. Then Nelson from The Simpsons pop up, points, and Howard and goes, ha ha. Nice. I like it. So that's my take on the third episode. I think we're going to find out Gaia is still alive. We know that Gravik has already gotten some, if not all, of the Super Skrull powers. He's got the Extremis powers. But I think Fury is playing some games. I think Fury's got more cooking than we think he does. And what's going on with his wife, Scylla, is going to be very interesting, because she's probably tied to Gravik, but I don't necessarily think she is completely on his side. So all right, let's go ahead. We're going to take our last break, and then we'll do some key collectibles real quick, and that'll be the show for the week. Be right back.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show. Hey, since we're watching Secret Invasion, you may be checking out the guy playing Gravik. I don't think we've seen him in many things. Kingsley Ben-Adir is his name, but it turns out that a trailer just dropped today for a new documentary slash docudrama, I think is what they call them, called Bob Marley, One Love. And in it, Kingsley Ben-Adir is playing Bob Marley. So if you want to see the actor in something other than Gravik, because Gravik is very stoic, very angry, it'd be interesting to see him as a different character. Just to get an idea. Well, the trailer is out there now for him as Bob Marley. And he came out of this huge worldwide search for an actor to play Bob Marley. So I think that's pretty fascinating. So you can check that out on YouTube. They have the trailer for that. All right, let's jump into our key collectibles, and these are the scrolls. All right. We first up here, of course, first appearance of the Skrulls. They showed up all the way back in Fantastic Four #2 in 1962. First appearance of the Skrulls. This goes for $9,300. Median goes for about $3,700. Even on the low end, cheap Thrasher copy is going to cost you $750. Now, this surprised me with how early this appeared. Clert, the first Super Skrull, debuted in Fantastic Four #18. Like I said yesterday, I didn't realize he appeared so early in Fantastic Four history. This goes for about $1,800 on the high end, about $600 in the median, $180 on the low end. Avengers '89 from 1971. This is the first of the 9-part story, The Kree Skrull War. This is a classic. So I didn't go and do all the issues, but I just wanted to get the first issue on here. This goes for about $75 on the high end. Median's about $18, low end's about $5, and they're all in that price range or lower, this being the highest of the 9. Okay, then we jump to 1991, Fantastic Four #357. This is where Alicia Masters was revealed to be a Skrull named Elijah the Laser Fist. I love how they all have that extra little thing. They have that title that goes with their name. Now this one, I would think it would be more expensive, but this only goes, it's $3 on the high end, $2 for the median, and $1. So you can pick this up probably in a dollar box somewhere. All right, then of course, Hulk 418 from 1994. This is the first appearance of Talos the Untamed. So he's nothing like the Talos we have in the MCU, but it's his namesake. This goes on a high end of 15, median of 5, low end of 1, and of course, this has gone up because of it being Talos and the wedding of Rick Jones. In 1995, they put out a book called The Skull Kill Crew, and this involved Skrull. I could have sworn I put the R's there. This involves Skrulls named Ryder, Riot, Dice, Catwalk, 3D Man, and Moonstomp. And again, this is a $3 comic at the high end. So, all right, moving on. Secret Invasion #1. Of course, this is the comic series that inspired the TV show, even though it's very loosely based on it. This came out in 2008. High end on this is only $20. Median is 8, low end is 2. You can still pick up this series at a reasonable cost. All right, then in the New Avengers, we get the first appearance of Varanki, a Skrull queen. She's the one that takes over the persona of Spider-Woman. The whole Secret Invasion thing is hers. So this is a kind of an important issue. High end's 20, median's 8, low end is 2. Jay says, Kyle made it and sent it to me. I should have spell checked. No worries. No worries. Everybody was scrambling today. So, all right, what else we got? We got Captain Britain and MI-13 #2, also from 2008. Now, this was the first appearance as a Skrull in the form of Doctor Strange, who could perform magic. I think that's the interesting part. And he binds Earth's magic to an enchanted chain. Excuse me, my voice just left there. High end on this is 3, median's 2, low end's 1. So all of the original Secret Invasion stuff is reasonable priced right now and will likely go up. So this is a good time to pick it up. And then we have, this is a more recent series. This is from 2019 called Meet the Skrulls. And this is about a family, the Warners, who are a family of Skrulls. And I thought this was just a neat idea. It's from Robbie Thompson and Nico Henrichsen. And this goes for 8 on the high end, 2 on the low, buck. So again, a lot of these things you might be able to find the $1 or $2 bins. So Sean says, totally random. But your thoughts, Dan, on Henry Cavill as Captain Britain? No. And my only reason I say no is that I don't like the idea of somebody playing a high-profile hero and then just moving to a different company to play a high-profile hero. It's worked. It has worked. Chris Evans, Ben Affleck. But there needs to be a long time, and there needs to be something different. Henry Cavill should go on and play other things. He should go on and play the guy from in the Warhammer movies. He should, maybe give him James Bond or give him other things. But I don't think they should just slap him into another costume, because I think that's kind of ridiculous. It's typecasting, and just because they worked as a character, that's what I see all the time in all the fan castings. It was like the idea of Margot Robbie as the Invisible Woman. That seemed like a horrible idea to me, because it's Harley Quinn, and we're seeing these, to the average person who doesn't get that these universes are different. There are people who sit down and think that Batman and Spider-Man are in the same universe, and that's because they don't know any better, and they haven't done a great job. We don't explain that they don't. So, where I'm a huge fan of Henry Cavill, and I'd like to see him get a ton of work, but I think it's, just because he's British, don't slap him into the British Captain Britain uniform. There's other characters he could play. He could freaking play Galactus if you wanted him to, But do you think Chris Pratt as Booster is a bad idea then? Absolutely. I think that's a horrible idea. I really do. First thing, I think Chris Pratt is too old to play Booster. Booster should be a younger guy, very arrogant, and maybe when Chris Pratt first started as Star-Lord. But I would go, I'm a guy that likes to cast no names. So, but again, I just don't think they should jump back and forth. Emily Blunt should be Sue Storm. I'd have no problem with Emily Blunt and John Krasinski. Right now they're talking about Vanessa Kirby, and I can totally see that. I saw somebody talking about Matt Smith as Mr. Fantastic, and oddly, I don't mind that one. I don't think it's great, but I like it better than the idea of Adam Driver. Not an Adam Driver fan, at least not for Reed Richards. So, but again, we see these castings and all the time, and people go, no, this guy's going to be horrible, and they come out and they do great. So I sit back and James Gunn's going to come out and tell me David Corn sweats the new Superman, Rachel Brosnahan's the new Lois Lane. I'm like, I'll watch the movie. And if I like it or not is depending on if I like the movie or not because you cast X, Y, or Z. So would I love to have seen Henry Cavill stay as Superman? Yes. He's not, so I'm ready to see who the new guy is. Just the way the world is. I'd like to see another 2 or 3 Daniel Craig James Bond movies, but he's not doing it. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up there. The show is over. John Cena should play the Invisible Woman. Nice, Ed. All right, tonight's we've got What's in the Box, which starts at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, so you got a little break, and then join. I'm not sure who's running What's in the Box today, but join What's in the Box, and I will be back next week. I'll also be doing Pop Go the Writers on Sunday, so you can join me then. If not next week, we will talk, of course, about the next Secret Invasion. Maybe we'll get back to the Jack of Hearts pitch, and I'm going to try to finish the new Jack Ryan season and maybe the Witcher season. So, all right, Josh says, I'm with you. We got 7 billion people to pick from. There has to be another great actor to at least not double up. Yep, I agree with you. So, and Valiant, when you get around to making the Archer and Armstrong movie, I'm ready to play Archer. No, Armstrong. I'm ready to play Armstrong. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.